Pea Ridge National Military Park by Brandon Wallace. On April 12, 1861, a war has begun that will change the United States forever. The Civil War to this day has more American deaths than all other wars combined, with a staggering number of approximately 644,000. This devastating war held battles throughout the country from Pennsylvania to Arkansas, being large and small. Although many historians claim that Arkansas held very little weight in the outcome of the war, the natural state actually hosted some very large battles. One of particular importance was the Battle of Pea Ridge, that helped secure the state of Missouri, St. Louis, the Missouri River, and the upper Mississippi River for the Union. On March 7th and 8th of 1962, the Battle of Pea Ridge is fought near Bentonville, Arkansas. The Confederate troops are led by Major General Van Dorn, and the Union troops are led by Brigadier General Samuel R. Curtis. A month after General Curtis begins his campaign against the Confederates of southern Missouri, he begins to push his forces into the extreme northwestern corner of Arkansas. At the same time, General Van Dorn is commanded to take his troops of the Trans-Mississippi and destroy Curtis's band of 12,000 soldiers. Van Dorn decides that it would be to his advantage to maneuver his forces around Curtis's right flank rather than attacking the fortifications head-on. During this maneuver, however, Van Dorn's two wings are separated by Pea Ridge, which is very unfortunate for the Confederates. On March 7th, in the Leetown fight after the Southerners are divided, Confederate General McAuliffe marches his troops east on Ford Road, where they are attacked by Union cavalry, and this battle allows for the Federal infantry to advance upwards to help the battle. While positioning his troops, General McAuliffe is killed along with his successor, throwing the South into confusion. The troops that remained made efforts to push back the Federal forces, but without Price's troops they were driven back when the infantry arrived. On the other side of the ridge on March 7th, at Elkhorn Tavern, Van Dorn sends General Price to strike the 24th Missouri. Colonel Carr's infantry comes to the aid of the 24th, but it makes little difference. The South still has the numerical advantage. The Confederates pushed back the Yankees and could have obtained a victory here, but their inability to reunite his companies ultimately stops Van Dorn. March 8, 1962, the tides turn in favor of the Union. Even though Curtis has suffered a harsh beating at Elkhorn Tavern the day before, they still have strong holdings south of Elkhorn Tavern, and General Curtis brings up his troops that defeated General McAuliffe the day before at Leetown to help in the efforts. They start by bombarding the southern line with artillery, immediately followed by a Union infantry assault led by General Franz Sigel that drove Confederates to the right. Then Davis's division follows promptly, attacking the center of their line. The South have insufficient supplies of ammunition and artillery and are driven back. They are just able to avoid Curtis's right flank and escape with a few losses. However, this victory solidifies Missouri for the Union for the next 2 years. That summarizes the battle that took place at Pea Ridge on March 7th and 8th, 1962, near Bentonville, Arkansas. Now the location of this epic battle can still be visited today at the Pea Ridge National Military Park. The fields of battle themselves are still very well preserved. There is a reconstructed Elkhorn Tavern, and the most unique part about this park is its size. It is 4,300 acres of military park, meaning that 4,300 acres of battlefield have been preserved. The sheer size makes it a very unique park because rarely can a battlefield of this size be found preserved. What makes this even more noteworthy is the time in which it was preserved. In 1956, Congress wanted to make Pea Ridge a national military park, and this was a major breakthrough for Civil War battlefield preservation. Up until this point, only 1 acre of land and a landmark could be reserved for a battlefield, but here Congress enacted the legislation to accept a 5,000-acre donation by the state of Arkansas for the preservation of Pea Ridge. Once the land for the park was acquired, the government tore down all standing structures with the exception of Elkhorn Tavern. In order to restore the battlefield to its original state, the government even tore down the eloquent Winston Springs mansion after it sat empty for 20 years because the National Park Service deemed it inappropriate for the nature of the park. Their goal was to make the battlefield as accurate as possible. Many reenactments are held at the park yearly, and today it has become a must-see site in the state of Arkansas. Pea Ridge does a stupendous job in making military history interesting and accessible. The National Military Park contains a museum full of not only the history of the battles but also the history of the war. There are several exhibits that inform the visitor about the U.S. transition into the Civil War and what it was like for the common man. The museum also contains multiple artistic renderings from the Battle of Pea Ridge as well as life-size props. Perhaps the most engaging section of the museum would be the exhibits showing a play-by-play overview of the Battle of Pea Ridge with an informational narrative and an interactive map of the battlefield. Once you leave the museum, there are multiple ways to explore the battlefield itself, including horseback riding trail, several walking trails, and even a private road that takes you to all major points of the park. On these trails, roads, there are interesting plaques and signs to inform someone about the history of each location they are currently in. Also, because Pea Ridge is very tech-savvy, they now have a program where you can dial a private number on your cell phone and receive information about each site while you are touring the park. The road is the most convenient way to tour the massive piece of real estate while not missing anything important. On the road, you drive all the way around the park, and near the end of your journey, you come to a beautiful overlook of the battlefields, and you can see all of the places you've been learning about at once. The overlook is wonderful because the top of the ridge you can visualize the battlefield taking place and picture exactly what happened where it happened from a high vantage point. Overall, Pea Ridge National Military Park is a wonderful destination for all ages so long as they are ready to learn and have some fun. You can enjoy beautiful nature and wildlife, spend time with your family, and learn something interesting all at the same time. The park truly is a must-see sight of the natural state.